friends, it's Sherry Ricard with the Real Girl Talk podcast. I'm an author, speaker, business leader, and adversity recovery expert. I'm bringing you fabulous guests, lifestyle tips, and a weekly dose of inspiration to help you create a beautiful life. So grateful that you're here. Now let's dive in.
The loss of a loved one is a nearly universal emotional crisis. Unprocessed grief and painful feelings can be buried, leaving you to feel numb. But there is hope. Certified grief counselor, RN, and author Sherry Ricard shares her story of how to cope in her first book, Wake Up Call, A Mother's Grief Journey, after the loss of her 17-year-old son. This book, along with Sherry's other books, are available on Amazon as well as on SherryRicard.com.
I'm feeling the New Orleans vibe today because I am with a wife, mom, cast member of Bravo TV reality series Southern Charm New Orleans, lawyer, designer, and founder of Reagan Charleston Jewelry, the one and only Reagan. Welcome to the show, Reagan.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
And this is exciting because this is a Real Girl Talk podcast live, and we're actually doing an interview while Reagan's breastfeeding. So this is awesome.
You have to make it work. I mean, sometimes things just don't go as planned. So
that's right. This is awesome. So I love this. Her story is beautiful. And when you follow me on Instagram and Facebook, Empowerment is Beauty, you'll be able to see some of her store because I'm going to take some pics while I'm here and I'll be posting those. So this show is going to air on Wednesday. So if you're listening right now, it is Wednesday. Happy hump day to you. And I am going to be chatting with Reagan about everything from her jewelry to the Bravo show, if her baby lets us.
Well, lately she's been doing this thing where she fights while she's breastfeeding, and
Hey, this is awesome because this is reality right here in its finest. Where's Bravo when we need them? Because this is a working mom breastfeeding while doing an interview for Real Girl Talk Podcast Radio. So this is awesome. So I'm going to start out just a little bit. I want you to share a little bit about the history and what I'm seeing right now in this store, just your family history and the art gallery and where that comes from.
My grandparents had an art gallery actually right down the street from here on Toulouse Street that they opened in the late 1950s, early 1960s. And my mother grew up in and out of their galleries. They were at the Court of Two Lions on Toulouse Street. So the lion motif has been really just fascinating to me my entire life. I'm also a Leo, which, you know what that means. I'm obsessed with lions. But I started this company in 2012, and it's grown exponentially over the past 2 years. And it was just a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And it just feels very full circle to come from where I grew up in and out of my grandparents' gallery.
Where did you get your inspiration for your jewelry?
Yes. Well, when I studied in London in 2007, we took a weekend trip to Florence, and I fell in love with the city and the architecture and just all of the design elements that I saw everywhere, and specifically the lion door knockers that were literally on every other door. And I knew that I just had this connection to it, and I didn't know if it was because I was a Leo or because of the history of my grandparents' gallery. They were at the Court of Two Lions, and they had these beautiful stone lions at the gates, and I just always was so fascinated with that. It was just majestic. And
right. They're beautiful. They're very beautiful.
Regal. And when I went back in 2012, and when I came home, I was just, I don't know, it was just like a spur of the moment kind of thing. I'm like, you know what, I'm finally going to have something made. So I got on the phone and I found a wax artist, and I found somebody to do this one piece. And this was just for me. And then as soon as I started wearing it, New Orleans is a small place, and people are just really supportive. And out of the gate, everybody's like, well, how do we get one? How do we get one? Where can we buy it? You should go into production. You should do this. And so within weeks, I had gone into production.
Within weeks?
And very small, like a dozen at a time, and then I'd sell out. And then I had everybody asking, well, we need a second piece. We need a third piece. And so the women that had bought the lion door knockers wanted something else. So then I did the carousel tiger, which is modeled after a New Orleans carousel.
I love that place, by the way.
Oh, yes. It's really beautiful. And I just worked off of antiquities and looking back at old photographs. And it was something that felt so natural to me to just put something together and make it work. And then I did the Medusa piece that was inspired by my travels to Paris. I love Paris. I try to get back as much as possible. I'm going in November, actually.
Can I go with you?
Yeah.
That's my birthday month.
We're all going. Oh, this is my husband's birthday, so we're going for his
birthday?
November 7th.
Mine's the 12th.
Yeah, my dad's the 11th. Oh, wait, is he the
celebrate.
11th or 12th? No, he's
My
the 12th.
sister's still helping me, so I'm going to try to talk her into Paris in November.
You should. My sister's coming.
Oh,
I'm a little
nice.
bit nervous about it.
So the baby gets to go to Paris before me. I'm just,
We'll see how she does.
So talking about the jewelry, though, how did you learn how to make it? I mean, how did you learn how to do this?
Well, I am just a businesswoman. I outsource. I do not know how to wax carve. I do not know how to forge metal or metalsmith. My mom actually can metalsmith. My sister's taking classes right now. But I just found everybody to do the work for me. I can put together things, and I went out and bought all of the tools, and I can bead and put together necklaces and give me a pair of pliers. And yeah, I'm great in that aspect, but certainly not the carving techniques. So I would find artisans that specialize in the lost art of wax carving, and I would just get them a sketch. I sketch really well. So I get them a sketch, and I get on the phone with them, and I explain to them exactly what I'm looking for. I send out sketch after sketch after sketch, and they just get to work.
And you're a third-generation artist, right, in your family?
Third-generation artist.
Yeah, I thought that I did a little research on Reagan, and I saw that, and I guess it's got to be genetic, right? So to be interested in that and be third generation.
Absolutely, and I'm a third-generation metal artist. My grandparents, my mother, and myself, we've all gone into this business. But if I look back, my great-grandmother, who was born in 1887, she was a very, very talented seamstress and made the most beautiful clothing. She was a pharmacist by trade, had gone to school in Atlanta, but her passion was creating these beautiful garments. And I actually had put one on Reese, my baby, that she had made in the 60s for my mother.
Oh, wow.
And it was really beautiful. And the craftsmanship and the attention to detail. And so I think it goes back a lot further than just 3 generations. I'd love to know what my other family members and ancestors were doing, because she had this just innate passion for making beautiful things. And I think that that's something that is in the bloodline, clearly.
Which came first, the jewelry or the show?
Oh, the jewelry. Long before the show, there was jewelry. So we didn't start casting for any kind of television products until until 2014, I believe.
Where did the show come from? How did you become part of the show?
Well, we had a first show that never came to fruition. That was another Bravo style project with another production company. That was the very first one. And we had a similar group of people, male and female cast in New Orleans, and there were some disputes with production, and it just kind of was dead in the water. And then we found out later that they were casting for Southern Charm in New Orleans, and we got picked back up. So just the same kind of cast members. And I think it's because New Orleans is a small place. They were looking for creatives, movers and shakers.
Well, and there's a film industry, too, here in its own that a lot of people don't realize. They call it South Hollywood because there's so many movies. My son right now is involved in some acting and modeling. He just did a commercial here in New Orleans a few weeks ago. And I think a lot of people don't realize that they have a whole separate film industry here. So did you seek out Bravo, or did someone on the show seek out, or did they came looking for someone in the cast?
Well, through the first casting process, it was from one of my friends, Chet Porschow, who was Chet passed away several years ago, and he was just this lovely, lovely man. He was an interior designer and really talented, and we were very close. And when he started talking to someone, he was actually on Worst Chefs, I think is the name of the show. He had done that. I think it was
Was that a Bravo show?
It was on Food Network.
Okay.
And so he was kind of in that industry, and he ended up in this group of people for this show that was, it was a Bravo project that they were casting. And he told me about it, and he's like, I think you'd be great for this. Like, we should do this, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward, we have this big mixer at my house that they film. And it's me and Chet, my friend Chris Knight, who is also in television, Tamika Lee, my friend Heidi Dugan. I invited Rachel McKenzie that night, and we just had this great group of people together, and I think it really would have made for a good show. But everything happens as it does, and usually for a reason. And we were disappointed that it didn't get off the ground. And then when Whitney started putting together a cast for Southern Charm New Orleans, we were able to meet Whitney through our friend Nicole Harrington, who you saw in season 1. Her husband, TG, they're both in the film industry. And so Nicole thought we'd be great for the show again, and she knew about the first iteration that didn't work out. And so she put Whitney in touch with us. And then when Whitney came down, they casted like half of New Orleans for the show, if not all of New Orleans. I mean, they talked to just about everybody.
Wow.
And magic, happened with our little group. So we were the ones. We were the chosen ones.
So you guys have been friends for a while because you were married to Jeff when the show started, right?
Yes, I was. I had an entirely different life. Jeff and I married in 2012, and that would have been the first project. We were very much married, and season 1 was not when the problems began, but I think that's when they started to kind of like seep out into everything. And
does it make it harder though? I mean, it's hard enough sometimes to be married and you have to interact and come together as a team, but do you think that the show contributed to problems that you were having in your marriage, or was that prior?
Oh no, I mean the show, it didn't contribute at all. It just happened to we started filming when the problems started to really,
and
larger.
Reality shows will capture that.
Oh yeah, I mean to be fair, we didn't really show as much as we could have, and I think that was, I was green, I didn't know how it worked, and I wanted to hide all of the problems that we have. So looking at the television show, it really doesn't look that bad. Like it really doesn't look
right. I will say, looking back on some of the different episodes, it almost makes the person watching saying, well, what happened? Because you don't see very much, and you look like you guys actually get along very well.
And
you're friends.
Yeah.
And I think it's wonderful that you do.
I think that that's the hard part, and certainly was the most difficult thing for me, was that Jeff and I were very close friends, and I never wanted to even openly talk about the problems that we had gone through in our marriage. I was embarrassed by it. It was kind of
well, everybody is that has problems in their marriage. Right?
It was terrible, and it was something that my closest friends knew, and I was just in this habit, and it had become just commonplace for me to like kind of sweep things under the rug and figure out, okay, like how can I fix this, or how can I patch this up and make it work? And it was just, oh, bunny. Baby has something to say about it. But it had just become very difficult for me. I was in my second year of law school when we filmed season 1. My marriage was falling apart. I realized that in order to finish school, I was going to have to get out of the house. So we got this place in the French Quarter with my little sister. My little sister was at Tulane, and I was at Loyola. So we were commuting from the French Quarter. But it was an out. To get out and kind of get my head above water. I felt like things had gotten so difficult that something had to change. But even then, while we were filming, I thought, certainly we can work it out. And we'll figure it out. Because I'd been with Jeff since, we got married so young that I was a very young woman when we got married, and I didn't really see anything else, like how it could ever change. But in that summer after we filmed, I took my first like major job, and the balancing had become exhausting, and I kind of looked around and just really took stock in everything and realized that I didn't want to live like that anymore. I was tired.
Well, and then you started getting older too, and you start realizing things that are happening in your life, and if you don't feel that those things are going to work out, then how can you think about the future if you're focusing on everything that's happening in the now or the current or behind you, right?
I was just trying to make it work every day, and I cried driving across the causeway whenever I'd go home every time.
Girl, I'm not driving across that causeway. Let me tell you.
As it is, but imagine like giving yourself 45 minutes to an hour to reflect on everything that's wrong with your life.
Right.
Like, I cried every time I did it. It was like, the solitude that I'd loved, my first year of law school, when it was just like the time to like decompress from school. It really had turned into this like moment, whenever I'd have to do it, where I was just able to reflect on like all of the things that I was going through. And if I have to say what the show did, was it made me realize that I didn't have to just stay in that situation. I didn't just have to, deal with it or make it work, that there were all of these other things happening, and I could make a change, and I did. And it kind of, I always say the shit hit the fan in September of that year. And, I found out some things, and I really just was exhausted. And it was just, I put my foot down and I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And by that December, I mean, it was where we were like, okay, we're going to get a divorce. And I'd already moved out. I didn't go home again, packed up what I needed, and I left. And that was that. And I feel like this is the most important thing that I want to talk about, because it's so difficult to be married anyway. It's a job. And I think that you have to know when to give up, because I fought for so long. And I think that, and Jeff too. I mean, I'm not just saying it was just me. I was the only one working. I think that we were both trying, we were trying to make something work that never was going to work. And it was just getting worse and worse. And it became very stressful. And it was just, I think had we thrown in the towel sooner, it would have been easier in the long run. But I think being embarrassed is the number one reason why we didn't. And I know from my perspective, as a young person getting married, you have everybody asking you why you're getting married so young to begin with. And then starts the, well, when are you going to have kids? And I just felt like there was always something that we were doing or we weren't doing. And I think that it was also comfortable. We were comfortable. We'd been together for several years, and we'd been married for several years, and you get to know someone so well that it's like, why are we going to end this when we do get along? But there were problems in our marriage that friendship and time could not fix. And
I understand that.
I just wanted to enjoy the things that I was working hard for. I did not see a light at the end of the tunnel.
And you were going through law school during this time, right?
I was in law school, trying to figure out what I wanted to do after law school. We had just filmed the show. And I think that what the show changed was that it did give me some sense of empowerment, where I think that you get in this habit of saying what's on your mind. And you have this group of people that are always saying, say it. Well, what are you thinking? Just tell us. Does it make you mad? And you're constantly exposing your feelings. And I think for so long I'd been covering everything up. And after that, you have this it's just this newfound sense of freedom and feeling confident in yourself and your feelings and what your opinions. And that really did awaken something in me. And I just realized that I didn't want to be miserable anymore. And I'm not saying that it was always miserable, but it had become commonplace that there was some disaster. There was something going on that was completely pulling the rug out from underneath me. I was having trouble holding it together. I was having trouble getting to work. I was having trouble getting to school. It was late night fights. It was just, I couldn't balance it anymore, and I didn't want to. And so I finally just said, okay, I'm going to make a change.
You're talking about how you had to make a change. Did you feel that you had the support of your castmates?
It's a hard question to answer now because I'm a year out, and over the last year, I've had all of these positive things happen, and I'm really good about compartmentalizing and moving on from things. And I like to close the book on feelings. Once they're done, they're done. At the time, no, I did not feel supported at all. I was pretty devastated by that while we were going through it. And it was just it was a challenging time in my life to begin with. I was pregnant. I was in the very first few months of my pregnancy. I had really started over in that year before. I'd finished law school. I was studying for the bar exam. And I think that I had spread myself too thin, but I also hadn't really taken the time to consider who was going to take umbrage, I suppose, with my life choices. My friends were literally front and center for all of the struggles I'd had in my former marriage. I did not think that anybody would be surprised when I had decided, well, it wasn't even my decision, it was our decision to separate. We knew that it was no longer working. It sat down and said, okay, well, we need to get a divorce. And we were aware that there would be challenges. My friends knew this. And I was really taken aback when everybody was like, oh, well, we didn't know. And, Reese was, we didn't know who Reese was. Well, they hadn't met Reese.
Right.
And that's a lot to do with
the filming schedule and everything that was happening. But they certainly knew about him, and they'd certainly been there to see what had been a very public, I don't even know what to call it. Several things that had happened with me and Jeff were on camera. Not all of it made it to the edit, but they were there for it. They witnessed it, they saw it. And I've been around my friends quite a bit. This isn't anything that they had experienced. So I know that they didn't just chalk it up to being normal. It was certainly not normal, the things that we were going through. And I didn't think that anybody would be surprised. I didn't think that anybody would take issue with anything that was happening. In the months after our separation, Jeff got a job. Jeff had started working again. Jeff was working out again. Jeff was socializing again, things that he had not been doing while we were married.
Right.
I really didn't see that there was any hint that there would be an issue. Or I didn't see it, there was nothing that made me think that I would have to explain to anyone or that anyone would have a problem with it. I mean, I was going through it on my own and just thinking, okay, I left behind my life. I was a young woman when I got married, and I walked away from it, and it was very difficult. It wasn't an easy decision to make. It was traumatizing. It was, heartbreaking. It was challenging, and I did it at a very busy time in my life. But like I said, I had to make a change, and it was something that I knew I'd put off for a long time.
Right.
But I just never saw, I guess I never saw that coming, and Reese didn't either. I mean, I think we were both caught off guard by it. Filming does add another element, it kind of raises the stakes. And I know that I was surprised by some of the things that I had seen.
Right.
On television.
Yeah, because a lot of it, I don't think that you don't see until later. And you're like, wait, what did she say?
Yeah, I think that just this whole Team Reagan and Team Jeff thing, there shouldn't have been a team.
Right.
We got a divorce. Like our marriage had failed. It was no longer working out. The happy times were outweighed by, discord, and it was instability and volatility. And my professional life was suffering because of it. My personal life was suffering. My quality of life was suffering. I was not happy. I'm looking at a man at that time who was also not happy. There was no other option but to separate.
Right.
So I just, I think it's watching it all unfold on television, even down to I'm pregnant, and I'm getting married and I'm moving on with my life. And these are positive things. And I think that it kind of got dark there for a minute. And it looked like it was such a negative thing that, we were doing, but it was a beautiful thing for us. We were having a baby and starting a family. And, I had been open with Jeff about the fact that I was moving on with my life. And I think for me, moving on with your life doesn't mean that you move on with your life so slowly that it suits other people. I mean, you move on with your life. You just have to get on with the show. The show must go on. And I wanted to start a family. And I think that I'd spent a lot of time making excuses and saying, oh, well, now's not the right time. But it was because we're so, in a constant state of upheaval at home that I knew better than, to bring a child into that environment. It wasn't right. We weren't right for each other in the long run. And, we had such a wonderful, warm environment. Me and Reese were, experiencing such a wonderful, warm environment at home. And then it's like to face a group of people and your friends that are having trouble with it. And then watching it again, it was hard.
Yeah, that I can see what you're talking about, because even for those that are not, and I've been through divorce. So even if you're not on TV and there's a public display, it's still a public display in your own arena, a circle of friends, which can be very large sometimes. And your spouse has friends, you have friends, and then you have group friends. And I think what I found during my divorce, and you probably did too, that people felt like they had to take sides, or they felt like it's either that side or that side, because then they felt like they were being two-faced if they went and talked to that person and then came back and talked to me and then went back. and talk to my ex, or, I found out one of my good friends went to my ex's and decorated his Christmas tree. And I was like, what's happening here?
Oh, that's so weird.
Yeah.
I just couldn't imagine.
And it's hard. And I'll tell you that it caused a lot of tension and in our relationship between me and my friend. And we actually went a period of time and we didn't speak. And it was devastating because we were very, very close. And I will tell you that I went through, I was remarried and got pregnant 3 months after I remarried and had Carson, who's now 19 years old. And he's our little love child is what we call him. And it took that same friend a few years after me finding out that she also was in a relationship like you and I, that it just wasn't good. And they ended up divorcing. And it wasn't until then that she realized what I had actually gone through. And I'm not kidding you, she sat down and apologized to me for hours. That's all she could say, is that I'm sorry that I wasn't there for you. And I'm sorry that this ever happened, and how much she loved me, because she realized I wasn't there. She wasn't there for me because she was so concerned about my ex and his feelings, because I was the one that wanted to walk out the door, that she really just was angry that we were splitting up, because it was like we were splitting up our whole dynamic, because we did holidays with them. We went on vacations with them. And she was crushed that wasn't going to happen anymore. It was like I was divorcing them as a couple until they split up. And then it was like, oh, wait a minute. Now I know what Sherry went through. I've got to go apologize. And I'll tell you that was a long time ago, many, many years ago. I mean, Carson will be 19. So it was, almost 19 years ago that happened. And we mended our friendship then, and we've been wonderful ever since, and that was, like I said, 19 years ago, 18 years ago when that happened. So I understand that us watching you and feeling like we wanted to come to your aid and support you, because we did, as a viewer, you want to just go to your friends or those cast members and go, what's wrong with you? Do you not see, and not allowing you to be happy, because obviously, changing notes here, you're happy.
I am.
Yes, you're happy. You're in a wonderful relationship. You have a beautiful baby. And I want to talk about some mommy aspects. But before we do that, I wanted to ask you about Southern Charm of New Orleans. Are we going to see, or can you tell us if we're going to see another season?
I can't say anything just yet.
Okay, I didn't think so. That's okay. That's okay. We're hoping that we do get to see that, which that would be wonderful, because I know that I would like to see you and the relationship that you have now on a happier note. And I'd love to see the baby on the show. She's so precious. And I think it's great. So I wish you well in that. And I hope we see that. And I hope I can catch some of it, not far from New Orleans, so I can come anytime. But I want to jump into the mommy part of it. So now you're a mommy. She's 3 months old.
Yes.
And I want you to kind of give some of the new mommies that are listening, can you give us some tips for them? What have you learned as a mom? And what are some things that you would like to tell someone that maybe is expecting what to expect?
Oh, wow. I'll answer the second question first. It's magical. Expect that you are going to be so completely in love and consumed by your child, consumed with the love for your child. I had been told that, but I could never fully grasp what that meant until she was here with me. And I mean, I wake up and I look at her and I smile. Like, it's instant happiness. I'm so pleased with every experience that I've had. And it's challenging. I mean, it's hard and I'm tired. And there are moments where I don't know how I'm going to juggle not just, the baby, but work and our relationship. But it's so worth it. I mean, it is the coolest thing that I've ever done, hands down. She is just, oh my gosh, she's incredible.
I know. Isn't it wonderful? I think the greatest gift in the world is to be a mom. I really do. I think it's the greatest gift. Do you feel like, are you going to practice law now that you have her?
I am. And I'm fortunate enough that my father-in-law has a law firm, and we're going to set up a title office that I'm going to take over. and I'll be able to bring her in. So
Aww.
I won't have to make too many difficult decisions, at least not, in the near future, about where, how to manage the baby and work. She'll be able to come along with me. So hopefully fingers crossed that goes smoothly. Advice. I really have been surprised at how, and I know I don't want to say this, but how easy it is. And I don't know if I just have been blessed with a good baby.
It happens.
She hasn't really been colicky. We went through a little hiccup around 6 weeks where she would cry in the evenings, but we had, I think it's called hyoscine. It's for colic, and it's just drops, and we'd give the drops in the evening, and it would soothe her tummy. And that only lasted for like several weeks. So I think I've been really fortunate in that aspect. But I think that your instincts just take over.
Yeah.
And I had, at my baby shower, my girlfriend who's just had her 4th baby in January, my baby shower was in May, so a little 5-month-old. She went to go hand her off to me. And here I am, 9 months pregnant, getting ready to have my baby. And I was like, oh, no. Like, I was terrified to hold this child. And it was just, it scared the hell out of me because I'm scared to hold a baby. What am I going to be like in a month? And then as soon as she came into the world, I picked her up. I was nursing. I was carrying her around. I was moving. It was just like, it's nature. And your body just takes over. And it's like autopilot, or at least it was for me. So I think that for new moms who may be scared, or expecting moms who might be scared, your body just, it just takes over for you. And you don't have to be worried.
Right. And I don't think it's a little different when it's someone else's child. Don't you think that? I know that, I love kids. I love kids. I love babies. I could hold your little baby Reese all day long, but it's just a little different when it's yours, because you do have that motherly instinct to care for them. And 2, the baby knows you. So it's a little different because they're soothed and they're comforted when they have you. And, my daughter, now I have a granddaughter, Roxanne, and it's amazing. And my daughter is kind of like you, where Roxanne went everywhere with her when she was little and when she was a little baby, because she had the whole summer off. She was a school teacher. She had her in April, so she took May off. And so she had all that time with Roxanne. And over time, I've just watched Christina just grow. And it's just amazing how she is just this perfect mother. And of course I tease her and I tell her it's because I was a perfect mom. And so she got it all from me. That's right. She had somebody to learn from. As a matter of fact, she's got a Facebook group now that she just started. It's all for moms. And it's really cool. It's called Living, Learning, and Lifestyles. And it's a closed Facebook group. And she has all kind of things in there, great deals and information, and it's just really cool. So I love it that you guys are these young moms, and you just take to it and you adapt to it, and then you can share it with other people that haven't been through those experiences. So I love that.
Yeah, that makes me think about it. When I was in my 9th month and all of a sudden I realized how much I had left to do, I turned to social media to ask questions. And I also realized that there is this like mommy club. I joined the club and I was accepted and it's just so open, and moms are so willing to share their knowledge and experiences that, I can't even begin to about the feedback that I had every time I ask a question. Like, I was looking for any kind of product or any kind of tip or what to do in this situation or that. And everyone turned and, just gave the best feedback in the entire world. And it was such a comforting thing.
Well, I appreciate you so much, Reagan. I really do. I appreciate the interview. I appreciate you sharing. You're such an empowerment type woman, which is what I love on my show. Everybody knows that about me. Real Girl Talk is about empowering and giving business tips and mommy tips and entrepreneur tips. And I love that. I know everybody's going to want to follow you. So tell us some projects that are coming down the pipe, and also where we can find you on social media.
Well, I'll be launching tons of new jewelry, starting to trickle out before holiday. And then the law firm, and locally for Louisiana folks, I'll be doing closings. So you can come to me for real estate closings and any kind of title work. You can follow me at Reagan Charleston on Instagram, and on Facebook, it's /Reagan Charleston as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And guys, thank you for joining me today. And if you want to see some of Reagan's jewelry, make sure that you go over to my Instagram because I'm posting it all in my stories on Empowerment is Beauty. And again, on Facebook, also Empowerment is Beauty. Remember to step out of your comfort zone, try something new that you've never tried before. Keep your faith in God. And until next week, have a blessed, blessed day. Writer's Roadmap Master Course is going to open for enrollment in just 2 weeks. This is a 9-module course where you will receive 21 lectures packed with valuable information, videos, PDFs, templates, and guides to show you how to write, create a dynamic book cover, format, launch, publish, and market your book for free. When you're just starting out, I know some of the questions that you have is what should I write about? How do I publish? I constantly get questions from people unsure about what area they want to even become an author in. And often they're nervous about just choosing the wrong path or the right path. Sometimes it's the techie part of publishing. They just have no clue where to start or how to create a book cover. If that is you, then I have one simple piece of advice. Don't overthink it and just pick the topic that you're most interested in or calls to you. Go over to sherryricard.com, get on the mailing list so that you're notified when Writer's Roadmap launches for the fall. It's only going to be open for 2 weeks once it's open, and then it will not reopen again until spring of 2020.